Greetings, all you silicate life forms out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch, Season 2. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo!
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 2, Episode 12, The Alternate. Alternate title for The Alternate. Vortex 2, Dr. Mora Boogaloo.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I guess, yeah, conceptually there's some similarities to the Vortex. See, my brain was, I was like, David Carson's The Thing.
Oh, David Carson, the director.
The director of the episode, yes. It's like John Carpenter's The Thing, but
with not as good special effects.
Yeah, well, what can you do?
Quick note on spoilers, in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, but only an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series. Nothing too big, like when Deep Space Nine, the Enterprise, and the Voyager come together to form Trektron. Like Deep Space Nine is the head, and Enterprise is the body.
But Deep Space Nine's so much bigger than either of those other ones because it's a station. I feel like it would have to be the body.
Oh yeah, you're right. Don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, I'm just like, they wouldn't be compatible because one's Cardassian technology. I don't know. This doesn't work at all.
No, you see, long ago, the Trektronians, blah, 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 blah. Okay. This episode originally aired January 9th, 1994. It was written by Bill Dial, or Dial.
Yeah, I was wondering how you pronounce that. That's why I didn't take a shot at it.
From a story by Jim Trombetta and...
Who we've seen before with a story credit, but I don't think like the writing the episode credit.
Yeah, he was story credit the very previous episode.
Oh, was it that recent? Okay.
Yeah, the... forget even what it was called. The Rival.
Rivals.
Or whatever. Yeah. And Bill Dial also gets story credit, and directed by David Carson, like we said.
Jim Trombetta is also story by on The Forsaken.
Interesting. I guess that he did. That's the episode where we learned that Odo gets his hairstyle from.
Yeah, see, it all comes together.
So we're in the Jim Trombetta story universe.
There's two other episodes later in this series that I just looked up to see if he ever gets a like writing credit. It is always story by, except it looks like the last one that he did for Deep Space Nine, he finally gets a teleplay by.
Interesting.
He did one Voyager too. What's this one look like? Oh, still story by on Voyager.
And he never seems to just do story by himself also, because like the last one was the same, where it was like story was by the writer and him.
Well, he gets story by on his own on a couple of these. Let's see. Like this Voyager episode, he's story by on his own.
Oh, okay.
This future, the one that he actually gets the teleplay by, also he's story by on his own. The next one that we have, the next Deep Space Nine that he does later in season 2, actually, he's story by. He's not one of the 3 people on the teleplay by, but he also is sharing the story by with another guy who's also not on the teleplay by. So that must have been a weird one.
Can't wait for that episode.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, and The Forsaken, he's solo story by.
Oh, okay. So I guess just these last couple episodes, they had him he just jumped in to kind of like pitch some story ideas.
Yeah, maybe.
To the person who was writing the episode or something. I don't know. Okay, so in this episode, Quark is in his bar making a dazzling pitch selling discs of the remains of a celebrated Ferengi entrepreneur named Plague. Odo comes in, initially showing interest in buying some Plague. However, he reveals that Plague is still alive, and he just talked to him, bringing into question whose remains these really are. Quark is shocked by this revelation, and demands an investigation.
See, this one time, I'm not sure if I feel like I might genuinely believe Quark this time, where he's like, "No, seriously, I bought like a crap ton of these, and I'm upset now that you're telling me this isn't real." Yeah. And I'm trying to decide if he's being genuine for like the first time ever.
You never know with Quark.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never brought up again, so...
It's true. It doesn't come up again in the episode.
Suddenly, a Bajoran man with Odo's exact same haircut walks into the bar. And also he has no earring, which I guess all Bajorans don't have to wear earrings, but it was the first time I really noticed it.
Yeah, I actually did not even notice that, but now that you mention it, that does stand out. I think we discussed it with like Ro Laren when how she wore it on the other one, but I guess maybe if you're not religious, which being like a science dude, maybe he wouldn't be. I don't know.
He could just be like, a secular Bajoran.
Yeah.
Who knows? Turns out it's Dr. Maura Pole, the scientist from all those heartwarming stories about Odo's past. Odo is understandably uncomfortable hanging out with Dr. Maura until Maura roundaboutly asks him if he's still interested in where he came from. This piques Odo's interest. In the Sisko house, Commander Sisko is getting on Jake's case about his Klingon opera homework, which is a fun little... where he basically just says, hey, I had to do it, so you have to do it too.
Like, when's the last time you used Klingon opera, Dad? As if like it's calculus or whatever, where you're like having to do your calculus homework, and you're like, parents, when did you last do calculus? Like, this isn't going to help me in real life. And Sisko tries. He's like, you might decide you like music, or you might find yourself one day among some Klingons at a job. Like, it's just the way he says it just made me laugh.
I mean, you might find out you really love Klingon opera and you want to... that's what you want to do with your life. You never know.
I wonder if a non-Klingon can, be a Klingon opera writer or performer or whatever.
He can sure try.
It's true.
Try. Yeah, like there's some classic parent-child moments in this episode, and that's one of them. Then Odo shows up to request the use of a runabout. It turns out a probe recently discovered Odo-like life signs on a planet in the Gamma Quadrant, and Dr. Maura wants to check it out. But he doesn't want to have to go through the Bajoran government or whatever.
Yep.
Because they suck and take too long. So Odo, Dr. Maura, Dax, and another random earringless Bajoran guy named Dr. Weld, who does absolutely nothing and has no effect on the episode, fly to the planet LS6. While Dr. Maura and Odo tell stories about his super fun times as a lab experiment.
Yeah, I just love how different these memories are, where Dr. Maura's just, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. Everything was so great. And Odo's over here like, I hate you so much. And then it's funny because he's telling the stories to Dax, and other than the fact that he keeps telling Odo, oh yeah, tell the story, and then interrupting Odo, which is a thing that I always hate, but
right,
it's just watching like the discussion, like you can see Dax looking over at Odo every once in a while, like, okay, this is a little awkward, and clearly you're not enjoying it as much as this guy is, but I'm not sure, like, a graceful way to get out of this.
It's like when you were being subjected to, like, horrible experiments by these weird aliens, and you were desperately trying to find a way to communicate with them. So they arrive at planet LS6 and beam down to a ruined village, surrounded by a not very convincing backdrop.
Yeah.
I mean, the matte painting game on Deep Space Nine is usually a little bit stronger than this. In the center of the village is an obelisk with strange markings on it. They also find a small shapeshifter-like being made of silicates, apparently.
Hey, Dr. Weld finds that. So see, there's your...
Oh, okay, yeah, Dr. Weld is very important.
The whole episode, yeah.
I take it back. This whole episode hinges on Dr. Weld.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for him, then they might never have found the weird plant silicon.
Mm-hmm.
Although the way that he asked is like, is it carbon based? No, it's silicon. I was like, so is Odo silicon based? Do we know?
Yeah, that was kind of not made clear. Also, he didn't say silicon, he said silicate.
Silicate, yeah.
And silicates are the things that rocks are made of. So, I don't know. I guess it was, that thing was like the best effect of the episode, even though clearly they just had some like magnetic material and were putting a magnet under it, but
it did look good.
Since the obelisk thing looks interesting, they decided to just take it with them, with no regard for archaeological concerns.
No, they seem in such a rush. It's like, they come down, they find the stuff, they pack that up, they beam the obelisk up, and then they're just like, okay, we're out of here. Even before, volcanic gases start to kill them all, there just feels like an urgency that I didn't understand.
And I just like the kind of weird flippantness of it, where like Dr. Mora was like, wow, that thing looks important. Yeah, let's take it with us.
Well, see, Dr. Mora says something about it, and then I think it's actually Dax who's like, well, yeah, we could just take it. And I was like, really? That's your step one? Why don't you like scan it and then you can recreate it later? Why would you just steal this?
They really should have brought an archaeologist with them.
Probably.
Like Captain Picard would have been like, no, what are you doing? But as soon as the obelisk is beamed up, an earthquake starts and fissures open up in the ground, spraying gas on everyone. The four escape just in time. So, and it's never clear if like beaming up the obelisk caused the
proximity
earthquake.
Of the two is so close that I feel like it would be it's strongly implied that is what happened, although why that would be I have no explanation for. But
well, this mystery, like all mysteries throughout the rest of this episode, are never solved.
Yeah, we never find out anything about the obelisk.
Yeah. They make it back to the infirmary on Deep Space Nine. Odo is the least affected by the gas, apparently. Presumably because he has no lungs. The humanoids are all in comas or something. Dax is kind of affected, we're told by Bashir, but not that bad. And the Bajorans are the worst affected. Then we have this weird scene where Sisko tries to comfort Odo by telling him what sounds like a story about his father's final days, even though Sisko's father is very much alive and well.
Yep.
In good old New Orleans. He's alive just like plague, so maybe they're trying to establish a theme or something where people you think are dead are actually alive. I don't know.
Yeah, it's noted in the wiki that like probably because of this scene here, when Sisko's dad is eventually introduced, there's a whole thing about how like he went through a super serious illness and they didn't think he was going to make it, and he's never like fully recovered from that.
Okay, so at least they had some. What's the opposite of foresight? Hindsight.
Yeah, right.
To fix that.
It's like they're like, we should bring Sisko's dad in. Didn't we establish he was dead? And then they go back and watch that episode, and they're like, well, okay, we got some wiggle room in here.
Even though he's very clearly talking about him dying, he never actually specifically said he died. So,
yep. I won't spoil much about anything, but the obelisk, while we don't learn anything about it here, in a future episode, there is a very similar obelisk in the background of a scene, apparently, that makes you think that maybe they were right about the relation between this planet and like Odo's people.
Oh. Interesting.
But I think that's as close as we ever come to any sort of answer to this obelisk question.
To any sort of callback to this episode. So Odo heads to the science lab where for some reason Chief O'Brien is examining the silicate shapeshifter creature.
Our science officer is down. We don't have any other science people. Get the engineer in here.
Who's Dax's back? It's like work. It's like who's your backup? It's like, O'Brien. Doesn't he have a completely different job and not know any of the stuff you're working on? Yeah, whatever. So the two ponder about the meaning of the obelisk really deeply, like it's going to be some mystery that's going to unlock everything. Later, Sisko is awakened by a call from Kira to come up to the science lab. He arrives to find the lab trashed and the baby shapeshifter silicate creature thing escaped. Dax shows up, freshly recovered, and tells a weird story about how Bashir stole her clothes to keep her from leaving.
Yeah. This combined with the Bashir Dax moment later in the episode is just like, okay, I'm still feeling a little bit of the creep.
What's going on? And like, was this supposed to be like some sort of red herring? Several moments in this episode, I think maybe were intended for us to think we were in some sort of like The Thing scenario, but. Because it's like, what are you doing out of the infirmary? It's like, oh, I had to leave and Dr. Bashir stole my clothes, but I'm here now.
Well,
and it's really me, I swear.
According to the wiki, yes, the writer, or well, hold on, is he actually listed as one of the writers? Because not listed as one of the writers, but Michael Pillar says that he likes this episode. It was the closest thing that we've ever done to a monster movie. but it was the hardest part was to keep it a secret that, spoiler for the end of this episode, Odo is actually the one. I had to throw in a bunch of red herrings. And so apparently, yes, there are intentionally red herrings thrown in here.
Whether that's one of them, I guess we don't know. Also, there were two, like, at least two copies of the shot in Alien where, like, someone's, like, staring kind of in the direction of the camera, and then the monster comes down behind them, kind of out of focus. And frankly, the more time this monster spends out of focus, the better.
See, it's funny because the guy who does the special effects supervisor, was not pleased with the episode because he feels that the audience sees too much of the monster. And so he's like, look, I went through the script. I figured out, like, based on how everything was written, there'd be like 1.5 minutes of screen time for the creature total in the episode. 30 cuts between 3 and 15 seconds each at various times.
Mm-hmm.
I was forced to point out that in the movie Alien, up to the moment that we really see it, there are only 100 frames of the creature. So do we really want to see the creature on our episode all that time? And of course the answer was yes. So yeah, I just love the special effects guys. Like, guys, wouldn't it be like better for the horror element, if that's what we're going for, not to show him as much? And they're like, no, we want to see the creature. Get him in there.
Yeah, if they were going for a horror type thing, I felt did not come across very well.
Well, and just in addition to that, you've got the guy who scored the episode in here, and he's like, look, I treated it like a horror film. Now, an orchestra can give you tremendous horror effects, but it can also sound dated. So adding the synthesizers pushes you into that era that we're in now. And I was like, man, that sounds really 90s, where it's just like, an orchestra sounds so dated. Synthesizer is where it's at.
I know. Just, yeah, all the soundtracks of the 90s had all this, like, synth in it that sounds really dated now. Yeah. So after a scene where Odo visits a recovering Dr. Mora, and they talk about stuff or whatever, O'Brien is in the plasma conduits trying to track down the escaped shapeshifter. This is very much like a scene from Alien 2, except it's, like, way less atmospheric, way less scary.
Well, and part of it is that O'Brien puts out this, like, genre-savvy thing where he's just like, oh, geez, I hear weird noises up ahead.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out, but don't tell my wife that I did this because this is a bad idea and she's going to be super pissed about it. And yeah, even without horror, just in the Star Trek universe, being alone in the tubes and hearing a strange, unexplainable sound and going to check it out on your own, I was like, no, that's how you get red-shirted, dude. Why would you do that?
Right. So he has this bizarre monologue about how Keiko's always asking him how his day is, and he just lies to her because that he thinks she probably would prefer that or something. It was a very weird speech, and leading me to think that maybe he's the Thing or something. But...
See, my impression was that being slightly, as I said, genre savvy about this, he was being like, okay, I need to find some excuse to keep talking so that if something happens to me, they will know immediately. And there won't be that, like, is he just pausing because nothing's happening? Where is he? Are you there? Are you okay?
So yeah, he goes towards the noise, which in the movie Alien is where just the alien is just in, he shines his flashlight and the alien is just right there and, like, reaches out towards him in a classic horror movie jump scare. But in this one, he finds a weird thing and he just kind of, like, reaches over and touches it with his bare hands.
And then, like, goo gets all in him.
Fortunately, instead of deadly acid spraying all over him, it's just some harmless goo. The remains of the now dead shapeshifter, leading to the question of what made that noise, if that thing was dead.
Yeah, and also, I guess it must have been harmless, but there was definitely no way to know that when, like, goo ended up all over him.
Like, he didn't immediately die, so I guess it's fine. It could have had, like, alien viruses in it or something, yeah, who knows?
Exactly. Like, in 2 seasons, it'll turn out that there's been, like, a shapeshifter virus gestating in O'Brien all this time.
And he truly does become a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, it turns out that the shapeshifter wasn't getting enough carbon dioxide or something. So Dax and Bashir ponder if the shapeshifter is what destroyed the lab. Then Dax invites Bashir out for Aractogino, which he tries to spin into a romantic liaison, but she coldly shuts him down. When she leaves, Bashir delivers a creepy soliloquy about how Dax secretly likes getting hit on, and one of these days he's going to screw with her mind by stopping chasing her. Which is really,
We've been growing away from the creepy Bashir, and I feel like this is like some last remnants hanging on in his relationship with Dax, where he's just like, I'm gonna be a creep.
I mean, this is just like some like twisted thinking. And also, so this led me to believe, because it was just so weird, I was like, oh, is Bashir thinged now? Oh, but then Dr. Bashir goes to investigate a strange noise and is attacked by a mysterious blob monster. He fights it off with a laser scalpel, and it escapes through a vent. They are able to find a residue of Bashir's attacker, and Dax gets to work finding a way to track it down. In the science lab, Odo notes that the obelisk has moved positions. Dax says that she moved it because it was in her way.
It was in my way, so I moved it. And he's like, okay.
So, oh my gosh, Dax moved the obelisk? What could this mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most action the obelisk gets in the episode, honestly, is like... after this, I think maybe Dr. Mora mentions it again once, and then it's just like, we're done with that.
Yep. See, Dax and Dr. Mora have a talk about Odo. Then look at DNA samples from the first shapeshifter and the new one that attacked Bashir. Mora immediately goes to Odo's office to tell him that he recognizes the attacker's DNA pattern as Odo. They figure out that the lab attack and the infirmary attack both happened while Odo was sleeping, or in his bucket. Dr. Mora asks if there have been any other unsolved incidents on the station, to which Odo is like, yeah, obviously.
Not unsolved like shapeshifter attacks, but
it's like that time in The Simpsons when they pull the guy over. He's like, I heard there was someone got killed in New York City, and they never found the guy who did it. It's like, yeah, there's like hundreds of unsolved homicides in New York City. It's like, you don't know when to keep your mouth shut. That was one of the like 9 separate misfortunes in the classic baseball episode.
Oh yeah, that was the baseball. I was trying to remember what that was, because I remember the scene also, but I couldn't remember who it was. But yeah.
I think it was Steve Sachs or whatever. It was like, well, Steve Sachs from New York City. So Dr. Mora tries to get Odo to come back to the lab with him, but Odo refuses. He gets upset, then starts to melt. He presumably turns into the blob monster and runs away, but we don't see that because it would be too expensive.
Mora like takes a really hard line here. He's like, yeah, your so-called friends are gonna like put you in a zoo once they find out what you are. You better come with me. I'm your only chance. And I was just like, geez, you don't know. That's pretty messed up. Like, you just talked to Dax about how much she like respects Odo and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, Dr. Mora is just definitely like, he's the worst. Figuring out that the blob monster probably has Odo's hatred of Dr. Mora, the crew devise a trap using Mora to lure him out. The trap works, and the blob monster fights with a force field for a while before passing out and transforming back into regular Odo.
See, the scene where he's like bashing into the force field, I thought it actually looked pretty good.
Okay. With Odo recovering in the infirmary, Dr. Bashir is like, well, I don't know what any of that was about, but we got all the gas out of your system, so maybe it's over, or whatever.
Yeah. No, not like maybe we should monitor you the next time you go through your regeneration cycle. Just like, nah, you're fine.
So I'm sure it's like the episode's over, so we're just done worrying about it.
Yep.
Then Dr. Mora asks Odo if he can come back and visit sometime, and Odo bizarrely says he'd like that. The obelisk is presumably put wherever Odo's shapeshifting key went. Nobody ever goes back to investigate that planet again. The end. I just like to imagine like the obelisk going into like one of those crates like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And someone just like pushes it away and we never see it again. Yeah. So what are some interesting talking points about this episode? So first of all, I mean, there's much about this episode I don't understand.
Okay.
And also don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what were we supposed to get out of this story between Mora and Odo? That, like, Odo spent this horrible time in the lab and doesn't want to hang around with Dr. Mora.
See, I'm absolutely on the other end of this, where I was like, I feel like we learn more about like who Odo is and why he is who he is in this episode than in like all of the other Odo, quote unquote Odo episodes we've had combined.
Sure.
Like definitely more than that time you went back to the past and he had his first case where, you know, it's an Odo episode, but it's just like, I mean, we don't learn that much about Odo. So this one, I feel like this is like, we're being loaded down with like, here's Odo backstory and some really good explanations of like why he is as like surly and untrusting and suspicious as he is, and we even get this weird like this relationship with him and Mora where he's constantly like, yeah, that guy is not my dad, but then actually does seem to view him as a dad in a lot of weird ways, like when Mora tells him that he's proud of him and Odo's like, huh. And then, like, when Mora's not looking, he gives this look at him like he's not sure what to do with this revolutionary statement that was just made. So I thought this was, like, a great Odo episode.
Okay, so, I don't know, because I just never got... I was like, does Odo see Mora as a father figure? Like, does he have any kind of admiration or respect for him or love for him? Because it seemed like the whole time... It was kind of like he was like, you know, an abuse victim.
Yeah.
And then, you know, his dad's just like showing up and like trying to, you know, make all good with him all the time and he wants nothing of it. And then like at the end when there's this moment where Mora's like, oh, I see that you have this life now and that you're a good, you know, because over the course of the episode, he like comes to respect what he initially calls his like police thing.
Yeah. Odo's like, yeah, I'm the chief of security for the entire station. He's like, yeah, chief of security on some random little thing floating in space. How amazing.
Yeah. So just, I don't know. I just would never want to have anything to do with this guy.
Yeah,
but
I can see that.
You know, maybe if you're Odo and, you know, I guess you can't help who your role models and stuff are, but just like the end when Dr. Mora suddenly became nice and was like, can I come visit you like on a limited basis? And Odo was like, I'd like that. I was like, that moment didn't click for me for some reason. Instead, you know, I would have liked to have had him say, it's like, look, obviously like your time in the lab was no fun. If you want to come visit me ever, I'd love it, but I'm just going to go back to Bajor and leave you alone now. I think would have been a better thing to say, but you know.
Well, and I don't think he talks. I think you got that a little off. I feel like the end was not, can I visit you? It was more like, hey, can we, you know, talk sometimes about things that are important to you? Like, I'd like it if we could talk. And so I got the impression it was going to be like a subspace thing.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Yeah. Cause that was obviously, I feel like that was the main, or what we were supposed to get out of the episode, because the entire rest of the episode makes no sense. And so I was like, what is really supposed to be going on with this Mora and Odo episode? Because the rest of the episode is filled with so much, like, there's all this weird techno babble about, it's like, heat signatures and, like, RF energy that they keep referring back to, and that just kind of fizzles out and goes nowhere when it turns out that Odo's the monster.
Yeah. Well, I think the only thing about the heat was it's apparently the monster Odo like is drawing energy from the station, and it's causing all this energy coming off him is causing like an increase in the heat wherever he is. So that's how they get from Bashir that this was the same thing that was in the infirmary or in the lab or whatever, because the temperature went up in both places, which also may be kind of a red herring, because it's like it's not the creature that escaped from the lab, but we find out that like basically Odo creature broke in to help the thing escape, which makes a lot more sense, because they established earlier when they're talking about the escape, it's like, yeah, the power just like suddenly shut off, and someone's like, so somebody like helped it, and they're like, well, I mean, it could have also just been like, a burst of some sort of energy like shorted everything out for a minute. But it makes much more sense when like Odo is either able to bypass it or is actually draining energy, and so that is it's almost like a coincidence that he was able to get in there to release the thing and get rid of the force field around it because of the energy drain caused by his transformation.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very unclear. Like, so you think maybe like in his monster form he was still like cognizant enough to turn off the power or whatever?
That's the thing. I started to go that way, and then I was like, it doesn't seem that way. So maybe it was just the energy drain is coincidentally, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to get to the lab because there was this containment field. So it's like, oh, I guess it's lucky that you also drain energy.
So I guess we're just meant to believe that the mysterious volcanic gases, when they mix with Odo, turn him into a monster that has all these completely different properties.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Has his subconscious dislike for his father.
Yeah, the wiki talks about it being kind of like an id thing. And so, I mean, maybe.
I mean, yeah, it's just nothing. None of it makes sense to me.
So apparently, this is the last episode directed by this guy, David Carson of Star Trek. He does go on to direct the movie Generations.
Oh, interesting.
But the one quote in here from him, he says, "I enjoyed the alternate. It had a lot of different colors and interesting stuff in it."
Oh, a lot of colors.
Yeah, a lot of colors.
I mean, when they did when they were setting their trap on the promenade or whatever, and they had like all the neon lighting on the promenade, I was like, oh wow, do they always have all that lighting? Like, can they change the color of that lighting? Or
it's all like Hue smart bulbs.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it. Because it was like 1994, so it had to be all like fluorescent lighting with like colored plastic over the top. Or
I just meant, in the future, in universe, it's like all of their bulbs are like these color changing.
Yeah, I imagine they have some sort of like futuristic. Have they ever said the word light bulb in Star Trek?
I doubt it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that was kind of visually interesting. The man, that blob monster looked pretty rough though. like the effect on Odo is usually way better than that monster. So I don't know if like what their deal. Like, I guess they couldn't make it look too much like Odo, so they had to build some new textures or whatever. But also you could just kind of like see the polygons on the blob sometimes. So yeah, it felt a little like rough to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree necessarily.
Like, especially like when it's like escaping through the vents and stuff.
Yeah,
it was very weird. I guess it looks a little bit better when it's fighting the force field, because like it's more like fuzzy.
Yeah.
And most of the force field effect is like doing the work in that shot.
And that's also a card.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, the shot of like him against the force field. It's like Rogue Changeling or something like that.
Yeah, I do remember that card now that you mention it. Yeah, it was like a dilemma or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like there was another part where he had a tentacle that he attacked Dr. Bashir with. And that was clearly like it didn't look anything like the rest of the monster. It was like a practical tentacle that they had laying around.
just one of those tentacles you have.
I'm sure they have all kinds of like space tentacles and stuff laying around in their prop shop or whatever.
Probably.
Yeah. So my rating on the special effects is low.
Yeah.
Like D minus.
And it's a bit of an effect heavy story, so that's not good overall.
Yeah. Well, because like there are several times when like we'd already seen the monster, but then like when he transforms into the monster in his office, like we just don't see it at all.
Mm-hmm.
We just see it in Mora's reaction or whatever, even though we've seen the monster attack like 2 people at that point. So it was like, I think this effect was difficult for them or something.
The makeup of like Odo melting as he's about to turn into the monster, I thought that was pretty effective.
Yeah, that looked a lot like the makeup from The Forsaken when he melted in that episode.
I'd kind of forgotten that, but that's true.
So they probably had that figured out. And then he had kind of an in-between phase where he started melting on the console, and that looked okay, which was clearly CG. But then in blob form, which you'd think would be the easiest thing to animate, he looks the worst. I don't know. This is just me whining about special effects. And then the matte painting on the planet. Like, you could clearly tell where the set ended and the matte painting began. Yep. And that's not usually something you want to see. Because they were doing like these overhead, like looking down shots. It just made it really obvious. You know, usually when they're like on Bajor, I feel like it's a little bit more seamless. They always have like that same Bajor background in the background.
I feel like most of the time we've been to Bajor, it's like at Bareil's place or whatever, and then there's all these trees and stuff, so you're not even really...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have that one... I don't know when we've seen it, but it's like when we were at like Kaiopaka's house or whatever, and she's got that kind of like balcony, and then they look out over the planet. I like it because like in the very first episode, like all the buildings looked all like crumbly and destroyed and everything, and then later they looked more fixed up. I always thought that was a little cool attention to detail thing that they put in there. What else about this episode?
Did you spot a Morn? I assume he was in like the opening with
Yeah, he was one of the people that Quark was trying to sell Plague to. Mm. It was like a Ferengi guy, a lady who looks like Seven of Nine, and Morn. And then Morn was like stroking his chin, really skeptically looking.
He knows Plague like personally.
Yeah, he's like, "Are you? Didn't I just meet that guy on that planet, or was that a different guy?"
Plague is such a common name these days.
True. You know, Plague, very popular Ferengi name for all we know. But yeah, I swear that Ferengi guy also was a guy that we saw in the Nagus episode or something, but he doesn't have any lines. But I'm not 100% certain about that. He just looked very familiar.
So now I'm going through the list here. Let's see who's in this episode. Broik is listed again, but there's someone named Jones. Lieutenant Jones.
Okay.
What are you up to, Lieutenant Jones? Oh, this is one of those guys who always like is in here as different background actors. Okay, that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
Morn, Bajoran Security Deputy, and then unknown actor is Bajoran Security Deputy 2, DS9 Security Deputy, DS9 Female Security Officer, DS9 Male Security Officer, Ferengi, so maybe that's the guy, because I don't see any other Ferengi mentioned anywhere in here.
Yeah, that must be the guy.
And then there's a Markalian, a Rotsiv member, and a Tigerian.
Ooh, a Tigerian.
There's also an Antikin, but we know who the actor for that one, so interesting. All right.
So we don't know the actor who played the Ferengi?
Apparently not. It just says unknown actor as Ferengi.
Maybe it was Broik. I've forgotten what Broik looks like.
Could be.
Although it'd be kind of weird if Quark was trying to sell Broik some...
Yeah, like trying to sell one of his employees on the clock some stuff I mean, not that I don't think Quark is willing to, take money from his employees for any reason that he can find, but oh no, I think I see Broik walking by in the background while he's talking to this guy, so...
Oh, okay.
We also, one of the things it talks about in the wiki is that, like, in the future, it's established, like, when they vacuum desiccate a Ferengi and sell them, it's, like, a much more limited number than the 5,000 Quark has here. It's, like, 52 or something is as many as it goes.
Well, and he kept saying dismembered instead of desiccated. So, I guess... You're dismembered, then the dismembered parts are desiccated? Or...
I mean, you'd have to be dismembered to be cut up that small. Like, what other way are you going to do it?
Well, couldn't they just, like, desiccate you first, then, like, split the dust into, like... Because it's clearly, like, some green dust in there.
Maybe that does make more sense.
But it has, like, the official seal of dismemberment or something on the
Yes, it's disc. Like the disc has the seal of dismemberment right there on it.
That can't be faked. I also, like... where did Odo get that money from? He doesn't have pockets.
See, when he first starts talking to him about how he's going to be interested, and he really has a long monologue about how curious this whole thing is and how he's going to start a collection and so on and so forth.
I was believing him. I was like, okay.
I want to see Odo start this collection. Like, I want to see in his office this display case later on. But I was just like, but how are you going to buy it? Where are you going to get the money from? But I guess maybe, I don't know, Bajor may use money, so they may pay him.
Well, yeah. I mean, Bajor definitely uses money because in the flashback episode, the previous Odo episode, the widow lady, was blackmailing people.
Oh yeah. And
that was,
she got her electricity cut off for non-payment.
And it was like 100,000 Bajoran litas or something like that.
So yeah,
per person.
I mean, maybe Odo gets regularly paid.
And then they have a bank on Bajor, so. Because that's where he had to send someone down to like check out the bank or whatever. So they have a fully functioning money-based economy down there, apparently, based on that one episode. So yep, he gets paid. I'm just wondering where he carries this. I kind of wonder how anybody carries this bulky money around, but he just had it there in his hand. Like, was he holding that the whole time, anticipating this?
I mean, it's Odo. It could be like inside of him. He could have internal pockets.
True. That's, I guess, one good thing about being Odo. But, he's just like, here's the money. And he pulls it out of nowhere.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me until you said that, yeah.
Well, you know what? Actually, maybe he just shapeshifted the money into his hand to mess with Quark.
Yeah.
That's probably what he did.
Could be completely fake money.
Yeah, because Quark never actually took the money. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
All right.
It was fake shapeshift money.
Only one other note that I have about this episode. There's an interesting thing in here about how originally they were going to have Morapole be played by Renee Auberjonois to like mimic how, Data's actor plays his creator, and later on Robert Picardo has a similar thing. But the issue here was they realized that, like, to swap this actor back and forth between changeling makeup and then Bajoran makeup would take a ridiculously long time. And so it says that most DS9 episodes are shot in 7 days. It was estimated that if he played both parts, it would take at least 14 days to shoot.
Huh.
So they didn't do that.
Even with carefully scheduling, like today is going to be an Odo day and today is going to be a Bajoran day or whatever.
You would think, right, that would make it. But I guess because of all the scenes together with all the other actors, like, that might actually be even more difficult, is to have all the exact same setups and actors and camera positions as yesterday, but filming it from the other side. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they'd have to lock down the camera, and then it'd probably be a big pain. And then if you mess it up by just an inch, you're screwed.
Yep.
And sometimes we see in Star Trek shows they try to accomplish it with a green screen effect or something, and it always looks terrible. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, ready to jump into ratings?
Yeah, let's do ratings. What do you say? What say ye?
Okay. I just don't like this episode at all. Mm-hmm. I'm giving it an ensign.
Wow. That is low.
And again, I have to
you got to decide in relation to Melora here.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going below Melora, because I was just so cruel on Melora. So it's now anything below Melora has to be an ensign. Yeah. But, let's see. And the other one was Sanctuary. I guess I'll give it better than Sanctuary. Yeah, it's just the whole, the whole Odo and Dr. Morris stuff just really fell flat for me. And the fact that, it's just they weren't even trying to explain what was going on. Basically just a bunch of weird stuff happened. And then it was okay, well, whatever that was, it's over now. So, yeah. That's where I'm going to put it.
Okay.
Second lowest of the season.
See, I as I mentioned, disagree. I feel like that the Odo bit of the story hit really well for me. I don't disagree with you. So I agree with you that the story otherwise is really left unclear. But I feel like they're going for this horror feel, and so that's like intentional. Like, if you sat the whole episode explaining all this stuff, then you don't get the same like, oh, what is this mysterious, scary thing in the vents, like, feel to it. So I think you can't explain it really. Even I agree that it's a little over the top when at the end Bashir's just like, yeah, man, I don't know. Probably we're done. Maybe just get some rest, I guess. But so yes, the episode has its problems, but I like it. So I'm gonna put it above the line, but just barely. So it's gonna be Lieutenant Commander, but like my bottom Lieutenant Commander.
Even under Necessary Evil?
Yes, under Necessary Evil.
Okay. The alternate. Which, again, I'm totally stumped about this title.
I think we have recently been discussing, Prince Harry's book, The Spare, and so every time I try to think about the alternate, that's the only thing that my mind keeps going to, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I guess it's like an alternate personalities thing. Like this is the other version of Odo, the id that hates the Doctor or whatever and wants to kill him. That's the only thing that I can think of the alternate referring to.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I literally have nothing, so that's like at least like, okay. See, Sanctuary, that kind of made sense. Second Sight, we think makes sense if it's a reference to Love at First Sight, or maybe some kind of psychic reference, or an attempt at a reference to both. But this one is just like, I really do not understand what they meant by this.
So now that I'm reading again, the first note in the wiki about the background is that when Jim Trombetta came up with the idea for the episode, the concept was a shapeshifter suffering from multiple personality disorder. Not only would he go around exhibiting different personalities, but different bodies. And so I guess that plays into like, this is an alternate personality sort of thing.
So you know what this episode really needed? Have you ever seen the original Psycho?
No.
Okay, well, anyway. Well, you know the twists of Psycho, right? Okay, so at the end of the episode, a psychiatrist just shows up out of nowhere. Like, I don't think we even saw him the whole movie. He just shows up at the police station and explains, like, what was going on in Norman Bates's brain. He was like, oh, when he was a child, he must have developed this alternate personality, and then this trigger caused him to do... Like, it's kind of like famously like the worst part of the movie where this guy just explains everything that happens for the audience who doesn't get it.
Okay.
So I'm like, we really kind of need this in this episode, as opposed to Dr. Bashir going like, heck if I know what that was. But I got all the gas out of you, so I guess you're fixed now. Who knows?
I just love how this is this the second episode in a row where Bashir's just like, I don't know anything about your physiology, Odo, so, whatever.
I don't know if it's in a row.
Because this happened recently, I recall, but I don't know. I don't remember for sure what episode
he definitely has referenced that before. Because the last episode was Rivals, that's right. I'm like behind on my editing, so... Yeah. Did Odo need medical attention in that episode?
Nah, probably not.
Trying to remember what happened in that episode. I just remember there was the grudge match of the galaxy. Or whatever. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, a little bit of Psycho scene would have like you saying like this is supposed to be a horror. Like I picked up on those alien style shots.
Yeah. For
sure. But like I never felt like I was supposed to be experiencing a horror vibe. Like, I always got more of a mystery vibe, because, they'd show up and the lab is trashed, and then it's like, a monster attacks Bashir, which I guess, is as horror as it gets.
It's true.
But he fights it off, and it just runs away, and then they get back to, like, doing science-y stuff, so... Yeah, I think definitely some, like, more moody shots, or, like, if you have O'Brien crawling through the plasma conduits looking for the monster, like turn down the lights in those conduits and like have him shining flash, just like in that scene from Alien where he shines a flashlight over here and is he about to shine the flashlight on something scary? Who knows?
Maybe put a jump scare in there. It doesn't even have to be like a real...
Yeah. I mean, maybe the goo falling on him was supposed to be a jump scare.
Maybe.
It was more of a gross...
Yeah, it was like, ew.
A jump gross.
What the Go take a shower now, O'Brien. What are you doing?
I was just kind of mad at O'Brien. It's like, why are you just like touching that? Like, you don't know what that is.
Poke it with a stick.
Like, tricord it first.
Oh yeah, that would have been the way to go, for sure.
Or something. He's like, oh, what's this? And it was like, ew. So interesting. Kind of two different levels of opinion on that one.
Yeah.
But, that happens sometimes. I kind of wonder what IMDb says.
Good question.
Ooh, Yellow Jackets returns in March. I didn't see season 1, but... 6.7.
So,
which is... Yeah, but it's kind of better than the ones we've been having. Because, like, Second Sight is 6.2, Sanctuary is 6.4, Rivals is 6.4. So I guess it's starting to crawl out of this ratings slump that we've had these last few episodes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully we get some... Yeah, it looks like we're coming up on some better rated episodes. So, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description, where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Peace.
And remember, every once in a while, declare peace. Just like that. It confuses the hell out of your enemies. Do 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 do.